Good afternoon to those of you who are hopping on right now. This is the Digital Marketing Knows No Borders. And considering that we are living in a virtual world right now, borders just don't exist even ever. So my name is Shaheen Hakimi. I'm the director at Venture Café Cambridge. I'm glad that you're hopping on with us right now. Our Thursday gatherings are an opportunity for entrepreneurs, innovators, small business leaders, and professionals alike to come together and just make things happen. We try and create small resources for small businesses. We try and provide branding and exposure opportunities for people who are already together and trying to get out there even more, and just trying to make collision points happen between everybody who's trying to get together. So this half hour of informal conversations is meant to be exactly that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let's talk. So just FYI, if you're on camera, what that's conveying to me is we want to say hello to you. So Jim, I see you. Anton, Evelyn, Janice, welcome back. Just want you to know that if you want to talk, take yourself off camera or take yourself on camera. So I know that we're supposed to have the Canadian consulate on with us here today. I can't tell if one of these names that are on but without the designation, is anyone here from the Consulate General of Canada? So far, I don't see anyone. Okay, when that time comes, we'll do that. So I wanted to ask everyone, if there's anybody who came on here with a specific ask, put it into the chat box, or feel free to take yourself off mute to put it out there. We have a large community of people with a vast network of resources. And if you're looking for go-to-market strategies, if you're looking for some production help, if you're looking for how to develop your sales funnel, we've got people who can help you with that. So feel free to put those into the chat or ask us outright. Before we get into today, I wanted to quickly talk with our friends in Providence who just wrapped up their Thursday gathering. If you don't know, Venture Café is a local organization with a global footprint. So while we're here in Cambridge, we started here. We were born out of the CIC in 2010. We expanded to St. Louis, Philadelphia, Miami, Warsaw, Tokyo, Sydney, and we're continuing to grow. So we'd like to kind of get everyone here together. And in Providence, we are part of a regional organization named Innovation Studio. So we have our executive director from from Providence's Venture Café program, Toonie Shartner. There's so much explanation to do, but what I'm trying to say is, Toonie, how was Venture Café this week?
It was great. It was super interesting, right? Evelyn's here from our team too. I think the conversation was still going on and I had to take a quick break before I hopped on here. So I don't know if it's still going on, but AR, VR, great conversations. We talked about training from 10. We just started. We play around a lot. We're innovators. We're all innovators, but in Rhode Island, I'm an entrepreneurial leader, so I'm not afraid to continue to iterate and pivot. And our Rhode Island team has been very agile in this new virtual space. So we found last year at the beginning of the pandemic, as soon as it started to get warm, that's when the Zoom fatigue settled in. And that's when we pivoted our programming to mornings. And it's been great because we've been able to promote Cambridge programming, run our programming, and then hop on to Cambridge and vice versa. So it went really well today. Next week, we have our med tech. Life sciences is obviously huge in Cambridge, but it's our fastest growing sector in Rhode Island's economy. And we do monthly programming in our Venture Café Providence on med tech. So next Thursday, if you can all make it, 12:30 to 1. Every Thursday, I do a very casual networking conversation, just like this one. This one was born out of the one we started last year in Rhode Island. So 11:30 to 12 every Thursday. Come on over. And then next week, 12 to 1 is our MedTech Forum. Shaheen, that's a good one if anyone's interested. So yeah. And then besides that, Shaheen, everyone should join our whole nonprofit organization, our regional organization, Innovation Studio, for our full-on, all-hands coffee networking, which is on St. Patrick's Day from 10 to 11. So Evelyn, can you drop the link to that?
That one is on St. Patrick's Day, you're right.
So wear your green, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't anticipate, so unfortunately, this is for the second year in a row, the City of Boston's annual parade will be postponed again. So show up with some green beer. We'll all cheer together during that.
At 10 o'clock?
Toonie,
No
it's
judgment.
virtual,
No
right?
judgment.
So it might be 5 o'clock somewhere. We know that there are some people from, I see Michelle I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your last name, Michelle, but I know that you're from Scotland. So it might be an appropriate time.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm Scottish. Sorry, I don't have my little camera on here. Why have I not got it? Scottish, but living in France. So both work. I'm on evening, and I literally just had my little apéro before I came on, guys.
Hey.
So yeah, it's evening somewhere.
Even if it's not, no smell, no tell, right?
I know.
That's what I took from Seinfeld of all those years of watching.
Michelle is someone that you just called out, right? Let us know in the chat or unmute yourself. Let us know how we can help you, because I know we talked offline a little bit and you have a great startup. You're Scottish, living in France, and thinking about maybe coming to Boston to grow your startup.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So basically, the startup, the company is called Fit Mama, and it's a kind of trifecta approach, looking at fitness, health, and wellness for mums. And the fitness element, just to give a small example, would be perhaps a mum who has had a cesarean section delivery. If you look at any fitness apps out there, not a single one of them are doing anything for that type of mother. Anybody who has anybody close to them who's had a baby will also know they've got a weak pelvic floor, so doing jumping jacks, high knees, things like that put even more pressure onto the lower pelvic area. So then going into the health zone, it's looking at, okay, well, how can we help these mothers? Maybe they're breastfeeding and they've got a colicky baby, they want to lose weight after giving birth. What food are they eating? What are they stripping out? And then the third zone that we look at, wellness, is really the mental health side of it. So a mum could have baby blues or through to postpartum depression, anywhere on that spectrum, going back to work, especially in the States, 4, 6, 7 weeks postpartum, and expected to pick up her job, 40 hours a week and look after a baby and her relationships. It's really crazy for her. It's a really crazy time. So that's what we're looking to develop. Boston is the hotspot for me because of all of the health companies that are there. So for me, it would be brilliant to get this science backed. So to do some clinical trials, to work with some of maybe a big hospital there. Boston Medical Center have a tiny little mum app online. And it's basically just their postpartum brochure that they've put into an app format, but maybe tying in with them or health insurance companies so we can get this into the B2B workplace wellness benefits for mums. These are the angles I'm looking at, and Boston for me just seems to give me that opportunity to take the product and the business.
Michelle, quick question.
Market. Yeah.
Are you I think it was a week or two ago that you were on here and you said that you may be bringing your company to the United States and maybe Boston, Providence, this region specifically. Is that still something on your mind?
Exactly. Just exactly what I just said. It's perfect for me. I think it's a great location. The company is actually registered Canadian. I was in Switzerland. I moved to Vancouver because I felt it was a really good startup community for female founders. I'm a single mum, so I took my son across there. He's French speaking, popped him into a French school, and I then did exactly what you're doing today. Loads of networking, loads of free events, loads of places to try and get your business off the ground. I did that in Vancouver for 20 months, returned back into Europe and got the MVP up and running. And now we're looking, okay, where's the next step? Where do we go? Where are the angel investors that would lead on to good VCs? And where are the mums that are really suffering the most? And these are American mums. If you look at American working mums, especially in the last year, it's much more in the press. But if you look at pre-COVID times, working mums were still having a horrendous time, really, really difficult time. Maternal mortality rates, particularly in the US, are horrendous as well. So I'm trying to do all of that. And the latest business plan I managed to dovetail in 3 or 4 UN Sustainable Development Goals as well, to try and bring it into becoming an impact business. So we can actually start bringing equality into the play, education for females, and really start helping mums regardless of how much money they have. If they have not a penny, can we do a freemium model? What can we do to help these mums?
Of course. Well, you're doing some excellent work, and I hope that you continue to utilize our platform. I think you're exactly the person that's trying to connect with us, and we're trying to connect with you. The more we can help you, the more we're doing our jobs. So I really hope that you will continue to come. Okay.
I will. I love it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And what you're hitting on right now is something that we're going to touch upon at our annual Founders Night, She Connects, on March 25th. I'm mentioning this right now because this year, as a fun community building project, I asked my graphic designer to not create a mock-up. Instead, what we wanted to do for the event banner was a community collage. So I want anyone who's interested in being featured on the She Connects event banner to take a look at the link that I just dropped into the chat, and you can upload your headshot and you'll be featured amongst the community that we're trying to build, right? I think, Michelle, that was something that you wanted to do. I think you already even uploaded yours. So if you're interested in that, absolutely do it in there. So that's one good thing to bring up, and that's gonna be on March 25th. Mark your calendars. We'll be dropping up links to that in our marketing next week. So let's see, there's a couple of people on here that I want to say hello to, and a couple of people that I wanted to call out. Evelyn is here with us today. Evelyn has been shadowing Toonie for a couple months now, I think, since December. And she's in, I don't know month number what of your internship, of how many you're gonna have, but I just wanted to ask with you, how's your internship so far been? What have you learned and what's next for you?
Hi, thanks for introducing me, Shaheen. I've learned so much from Toonie and just working with this organization with you, Yulia, and other team members. Toonie's taught me a lot about ecosystem development and strategic partnering and what it looks to have multiple high-level hats and juggle them all. And it's really nice to see women in really high positions. I don't have many women in my life before this that are in business, so I love seeing that, and I'm getting a lot of access to meetings and discussions about a lot of different topics, and I'm learning about front and back operations and the importance of team cohesion, and I learned that I can make an opportunity out of this opportunity. So I've been meeting up with people I meet on programming and interviewing them and asking them for their advice, and gaining knowledge from their background and their years of experience. So it's been really awesome.
That's really awesome, everyone. It's so important to have female role models in your life, people that you can kind of connect with. So I'm happy that Toonie's been able to do that for you, and I'm hoping that you're finding even more people amongst the platform. So I'm glad to hear that.
It goes both ways, I have to say. She gets it, and she is really just grabbing onto every opportunity, and she's doing such an amazing job and having high-level conversations. So Anton, I'd love for you to connect with Evelyn. You're amazing, and I think you could offer her a lot of advice. And anyone else out here, she's hungry, and I love to feed the hungry ones, right? So.
And does Evelyn have any particular area of interest? Because I've met through just going to meetups like the American Women in Science and some other women groups supporting women in STEM education, and like there's a group called Girls Who Code, and there are lots of support groups coming out of the big tech companies.
Yeah, so I want to become a serial entrepreneur, and I also like the industry of marketing. So those are my areas of focus.
Yeah, I have to say, she's a senior at Salve Regina University, double major, double minor, and managing 2 internships right now, as well as does service work. I think she's got the entrepreneurial blood running through her veins.
Very good. Good job, Evelyn. That's basically what the ethos of everything we're saying is. Keep it up. So speaking of internships, the former president of the Venture Café Global Institution, who is the organization that is in charge of expansion for venture cafes around the world. The former president posted on our LinkedIn recently that they're looking for a intern to help out with their diversity and inclusion efforts. So I want to drop that into the chat. If you think there's somebody in your life who is looking for an internship, and B, is interested in creating some impactful change, allow me to share that with you into the chat right now, and you can share that with them. And as we were doing that, I love Thursdays, and I love bringing our community together. And there's someone, one of our office hour mentors, Bob Donahoe, is on here with us right now. Bob, we don't get to see you so often, so thanks for hopping on today. What's going on?
Well, go figure. The engineer and patent attorney joins for the marketing session. But I have my own practice, and there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of highly qualified people here. So really glad to be here. Glad to be part of the community.
Thanks, Bob. And your office hours are typically fourth Thursdays, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So if people are trying to get in touch with you,
yeah,
they can, that's where to find you.
Yeah, and the focus is on IP strategy for early stage companies, startups. I've walked in their shoes. I did engineering work for 10 plus years, went to law school, been doing IP law for 20 years. And during that time, also nights, weekends, and early mornings, founded a startup, a high-tech startup, commercialized, brought some product, hardware, and software to market. So I've been on that side of it, and there's some traps for the unwary that I learned better as a founder than as an attorney. And so I try to pull that all together.
Perfect. Thanks, Bob. It's good to have you on here today.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you, Sean.
So a lot of friends are hopping on right now, and I wanted to call out a couple more people. But before we do that, I'm really glad to see Colette Leckborg here. And Colette, if you want to take yourself off mute, I want to thank you and the General Consulate of Canada here in Boston for partnering with us to help us bring this type of programming to the region so that we can support entrepreneurship, economic development, and just good times. So Colette, where are you right now?
Well, I'm working from home in Newton, New Hampshire. And we've been, actually our whole team has been working from home since March. And it's interesting because last year, we partnered with Venture Café for an event for women in tech, She Connects, and we had everything in place and the pandemic hit. So, you know, at the time, I guess like everybody else, we thought, oh, this is going to last for a few weeks, but here we are, right? And we're doing another virtual event, you know, almost a year later. So, again, I'm Colette Leckborg. I'm a trade commissioner at the consulate in Boston, the Canadian consulate. And I think you should view us as a resource in Boston for Canada. So we're looking forward to the session this afternoon. We have some great digital marketing companies presenting, and I will put in the chat some information on the companies. It's a catalog that you'll be able to access. And I just want to say a big thank you to Yulia and Claudia for all their support on the program.
Well, thank you, Colette. We want to thank you for your support as well. And yeah, Yulia and Claudia have been doing a great job. Yulia, is there anything coming up down the conference pipeline that you want to bring up?
Oh, I mean, I think we've already discussed She Connects today, but if anyone's interested in what we are planning, please feel free to reach out, check our calendar. We're planning some really cool things. We're going to talk about pivots. So who in the ecosystem has pivoted the most? What do they do to stay in business? I think that's a great learning opportunity for anyone, not only female founders. That's why we call it a founders conference. So everyone welcome. And we've rescheduled our biotech to May. So if anyone's not aware what that is, it's our annual conference on life sciences. It's going to happen on May 20th this year. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to put my information here in chat, and I'm happy to share the agenda. It's going to be great as well. Our April is going to be all about defense. We're having our first ever events with MIT Lincoln Lab. Anyone who's heard about MIT Lincoln Lab, I'm sure you're already impressed by the name because they do a number of amazing things, not only in defense, but biotech and other industries. And yes, and at the end of April, we're going to have an event with BAE Systems, Defense Innovation, and I don't have an agenda yet, but once I do, I'll be happy to share. That's it from me, no more updates.
No worries. Cool, thanks for the updates.
Excuse me, Shane, quick question maybe for you and Yulia. So the supply chain seed program, do we have any updates on this happening this year again, or do you have an estimated time for that?
Yes, actually I do. We are kicking this program off on March 16th. We will try to have the landing page for it ready a little bit in advance, but the official kickoff will be March 16th. The applications will be open on that date. And I'm sure I'll be talking about it more. But yeah, watch out for the announcement on our website and get ready to apply.
Great, thank you.
Amir, I would like to get some updates from you in a minute, but I just wanted to mention to everyone, I'm going to launch a poll here on the side, and we'd like for you to fill this out because we'd like to know who's in the audience, where you're coming from, what we can help you with, and what you might be looking forward to in the future. So it's a quick 4 questions, and we'll get to that in a minute. Somebody who also is on the call right now is Jenna Camann. And Jenna, I want to ask, do you remember me? I was in your GA course about 3 years ago. It was like over the Thanksgiving break. I took your GA course on digital marketing.
Yeah, when I saw you just now, I was like, I know him somewhere. And I just did a quick like LinkedIn view, and I was like, did he take a GA class? I was at the Bruins when you were with the Pats.
Yeah.
So it's great to see you.
Great to see you too. It's a small world, isn't it?
Yeah, very small.
It really is. Yeah. And honestly, what's going on right now is a perfect example of what Venture Cafe does. You kind of bring people from different parts of the ecosystem together who are trying to learn and connect and make things happen. So welcome to the entire process. I'm glad you're here.
Thanks.
Totally. Let's see. So Amir, quickly, I remember last time we talked, you were thinking of a name for your company. I think you landed on one. Do you want to give us a 1-minute pitch on what it is and any updates?
Sure. Our name is finally Curb Hub. So we are in the process of putting up our website. And actually this morning I broke our email system doing so, another startup learning. So, but that's our name. Curbhub.io will be our domain. And I will certainly would love to hear feedback from this group once I have something up there. I'm still working on it day and night, learning how to do this, but I would love any feedback on that.
Cool. I think you're onto something, and I think you want to get that IP down quick. So Bob Donahoe, I would encourage you two to meet and see if there's something that you guys should talk about.
No, absolutely. Actually, I had a very important question I wanted to ask from Bob, and I will definitely put something on the calendar to connect and discuss that. And that's about how we can probably, and maybe it's helpful for others as well to consider. Someone suggested that you guys are going to pitch your idea open to a lot of people, get an idea, get feedback. Maybe it would be, and you know that you will have something, for example, 6 months down the road. So why don't you consider some sort of provisional patent even? That's an inexpensive option for you to give some assurance that you will not lose the value of that idea. And at the same time, it also gives assurance to your potential investor that there's something being baked. But I don't know how actually effective it is. And I would love to hear Bob's thoughts on using provisional patents as some sort of protection for earlier stages startups. But if not here, we can definitely discuss in my one-on-one with him as well.
Right. That's a good point. Good way to tee it up. But I won't digress in for the marketing panel. Happy to speak with you one-on-one.
Perfect. And then when you need time for cybersecurity, Michael Smith can help you with that too. He's on our call here today. And Michael, I believe on March 18th, we're hosting a session with you as well, right?
Yes, definitely.
Do you want to give us a little quick something as to what that's about?
It's the right size security for a startup. So security people bring this big, huge bag of things, but really when you're a startup, you need like this much. So it's what's the right size for as you grow. And then what are the things you can do where suddenly you need more?
That's it. So March 18th at 4 o'clock, I believe.
Yeah, it sounds
just
right.
an FYI for everyone.
5, but yeah, 4.
Perfect. And what I just dropped into the chat is a link to our office hours. So if you want to talk with Bob or any of our other advisors on the platform, that's the best way to connect with them. And you'll also see Gianne Doherty on there because she is a cohort leader of the Launch Pre-Accelerator program that we're running in in Roxbury. We're everywhere, so sometimes you get it mixed up. Gianne, I just wanted to see real quick what's coming up on the Roxbury pipeline. I know that you have the panel on St. Patrick's Day. For anybody who's hopping on right now, I want to see if you want to just say a quick thing about it.
Yes, and it totally lost my mind. Getting ready for this digital panel. What is coming up on St. Patrick's Day, Shaheen?
Sorry to catch you off guard there. It's okay. We can, what we're trying to do here.
You mean the pitch event that's coming up next week? Is that?
Yes, the pitch event is coming up on the 9th. So we're super excited for that. HubSpot is one of our partners. And so you can join us Tuesday evening at 6 p.m.
Perfect. So if you find a link to that, just drop that into the chat, or I think somebody else may have already done that, but that's a perfect way to get people up there. So before I close everything out, we talked about, we see some old friends, we see some new friends. I want to welcome all our first-time community members who are hopping on right now. This session is a half hour of informal conversations prior to every Thursday, just trying to make things happen. We're trying to mimic those hallway conversations we had at One Broadway that we miss being physical in the physical space. And I am seeing encouraging news that we might be able to do that this year. So fingers crossed, as good as this is, I might be wearing sweatpants, I won't tell, but at some point we're going to be able to do this, and we'll get to serve our beers again. So we talked a little bit about that. What I really wanted to bring up is this is innovation and opportunities around Cambridge. Some opportunities I'm noticing around Cambridge are a couple, if anybody's looking for jobs right now, which I see here in the poll that a few people are. We have from our network, someone, Marina Escari, who is with, the job is with, what's the name of this organization? With Rife Health. They are looking for product marketers. So I know that we've got some marketers on this call here today. So if you know anyone in your network who's looking for a job right now and that this might be a good fit, absolutely feel free to share that with them. And then also from the CIC side of things, I noticed today that they're looking for a director of global marketing. So if you know anybody who is looking to join the CIC side, this is an excellent position to get involved. I'm going to drop the link to that one into the chat as well on that one. And also just generally, if you're looking for a way to get into the CIC world, their entire jobs postings is listed on that same exact page. You can see it at, I'm going to drop it in the chat as well. So if you are interested, apply, and you can absolutely, if you show up to Venture Cafe, you're putting in the work, and you can refer to me as someone that, as a reference if you ever want to. Just have a conversation with me first, and I'd be glad to do that. So that is that. I want to take a quick look at the poll with y'all. So are we sharing it? So I see that most of the room is working professionals, and you're probably just trying to, get a good break in your day right now. That's awesome. We got aspiring entrepreneurs. You're here to connect with the right folks. You're just looking to meet interesting people. You can absolutely do that. And what I'm curious about for next week is that most people, every week you guys are flattering me. Most people say that they want to hop back onto this one. So I appreciate that and love you, and hope that you do come back. And next week looks like it's a tie for effective communication and the product development process. So we have a good program next week, and we're really looking forward to all of you who are interested in coming back. So that is perfect. And we are almost at the top of the hour. So what I want to do is allow me to share my screen. Before I do that, I took Gianne off by surprise last time. So Gianne, are you ready to go?
With the panel?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Okay. So allow me to share my screen with all 1 quick minute. So I'm trying to understand as if it's working and share. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And which slide are you seeing right now?
It just says Shaheen has started screen sharing.
Interesting. That's not the way it should go.
I see black.
You see
The
black.
field of black. Nothing is
Okay.
there.
This is why I'm hopeful for the in-person gatherings at another time. Someday we'll get there. Okay. I think I got this now. share. Okay, perfect. So welcome to those of you who are hopping on right now. My name is Shaheen Hakimi. I'm the director here at Venture Cafe Cambridge. I want to welcome you to Digital Marketing Knows No Borders. This event is brought to you by the Consulate General of Canada here in Boston. It is for supporters like them in the community who allow us to bring this content to you to expand your entrepreneurship in the region. And we're grateful for partners like them. So we want to give them a special shout out and thank you for being on here with us today. Today's panel is going to be moderated by Gianne Doherty. She is the co-founder of Organic Bath Company and the associate director of programming at our Roxbury Innovation Center. Gianne, I would like to hand the mic over to you at this point to introduce our panel and talk a little bit more about what we're here to do today.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be talking about the new era of hyper-personalized digital marketing panel. So I'd love to welcome Eric and Jenna. Since it's Women's History Month, every question that, we'll start with Jenna's answer first. So, Jenna and Eric, I'd love for you both to introduce yourselves and share one fun fact with the audience.
All right. I guess I'll introduce myself first. I'm Jenna Camann. I am just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. I have been in digital for almost 15 years. I started on the agency side, then I went client side, and then I opened up my own consulting firm a few years ago. Shaheen was in one of my classes, so I also work with General Assembly. So I've done a smattering of different things. Fun fact, I guess, is that I had a real passion for NASCAR auto racing, which is a little rare considering that I'm from this area. There's not a huge passion or following here. And that was my very first job working in the sport. I tried to make it happen, and I did make it happen, even though nothing I did really led to that point. Didn't do any sports marketing up until then, but it was a great part of my career and really fun. And that's why I started in digital. I wanted to start a social media account for my client, Lowe's Home Improvement. My boss at the time, which I still give him a hard time about, said no one will ever have a full-time job in social media. So if you want to work in social media, you can, but do it after 5 p.m. So I did. Admittingly, it was 2007 and really no one had a full-time job in social media, but that certainly has changed over the years. So that started my path and interest in social media and then digital marketing overall.
Thanks, Jenna. I guess I get to go next. Gianne, thanks. My name's Eric Vardon. I'm a Canadian here just outside of Toronto. It is cold, so you don't have to ask me how bad it is, but I've been doing this a long time. A good friend of mine, family, I won't tell you the exact dates, but it started with the 1900s. It was showing me websites, and I said, that's all I want to do. So I went to school to build websites, and I've been in and around this space ever since. So, but serial entrepreneur involved with lots of different things. Always been in technology and in the creative development side. 2011 started a company here in Canada called Arcane, which we grew rapidly and actually just recently sold in April of this year. Corona was taking over the world, which is a whole nother story. We kept a piece of software that we built called Morphio that helped us scale. And ultimately now that is one of our spin-out focuses. And we hope to make awesome marketers have more time and be less stressed from all the stuff that, makes us angry at work. So thank you. That's what we're working on.
Fun fact, it's cold in Canada.
Every day.
Thank you for that, and congratulations on the sale. That is the dream. So I'd like to ask both of you, define personalized marketing.
Personalized marketing is marketing to one consumer, not a group of consumers, at its very basic definition. I'm guessing we'll talk more about it, but that's to me, the basic definition of personalized, talking to a single consumer.
Eric, can you elaborate on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what Jen is saying. I think it's the time and effort it takes to think strategically about who it is that you're marketing to, and it's something, you know, we're all taught in school, I guess, but the ability to use data to create more objective decision making is a lot easier than it used to be. And so looking at personalization isn't always about a one-to-one communication. It's trying to achieve that. It's really about the process of learning every step of the way, so that you're constantly refining and getting a better understanding of ultimately what's converting, what's working, and who it is that you're speaking to, and is it resonating. And then I think closing the loop, which we had talked about the other day, closing the loop, because it's constantly then about the sale and the customer, and then that feedback all the way back to the start of the marketing funnel is really what the personalization journey is all about.
And so for small business owners like myself, who can get overwhelmed by all things marketing and all the rapid changes, how can we utilize technology to make our marketing efforts more personalized? How can technology help us?
A lot of times, a lot of small businesses start off with email, right? We tend to, from an email perspective, we've forgotten a little bit about email over the years because we have social media. It's a little sexier to use social media versus email. We say no one reads their email, but remember that consumers' intent in email is to check email. When I go onto Instagram, I'm not hoping to see a business's post, right? I'm not on there to see it. So our intent is different in email, so it can actually be more impactful. The reason that businesses often don't do as well in email is because they're not trying to kind of personalize the message, and they say, let's treat all of our subscribers the same way. At the end of the day, people joined your subscription for all different reasons. Since that subscription, they've taken different actions. Some have bought something, some haven't, some have filled out forms, some haven't, some have followed you on social media, some haven't. As such, we should treat them all differently. So for small businesses, I always recommend thinking about email as the first step. It's the easiest. You can look at people's profiles. You can understand their web behavior with pretty simple technology like a MailChimp, a Constant Contact, really any, email service provider out there can connect with your website, and you can understand what people are doing on the web and then tailor your messaging and email to them. And I often say that that's the first step at least, and pretty, not easy, but a little bit more digestible for small businesses to think about, how would I talk to my subscribers differently? Let's start there, and using tech to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd add on to that to say that obviously we're in a service world, but with technology we can encroach, more to offering product and in scale within a business. So ultimately, when we sell our services, we're still selling ourselves and people and relationships. So the best thing we can do is use technology for any repetitive task that can be automated, or mundane work that we don't have to do, is going to free us up to do the things that we do best, which is be creative, spend time with clients, with team members, think about strategy. Ultimately, that's where the value will come out. And I think technology can also clearly bias, but try to get into protecting us from the things that ultimately ruin relationships or mistakes, and cause the ad hoc stuff that generally is what keeps us very busy. So I always look at those, side by your margins and how each of us are, trying to make money. It's important to be honest and communicate those things, because at the end of it, like I said, we're selling our services first, and technology isn't going to replace that. It just should help us, hopefully be happier.
Yeah. And then a question that comes up in some of the cohorts we leave here at Innovation Studio, it's always about scale. So how can you balance personalization and scaling? How do you make that happen successfully?
I think to Eric's point, we try to have one-to-one communication, but once you have a plan in place and how you're going to talk to people differently based on their behavior, it should be kind of a step and repeat of, okay, we're going to take the same approach. What are we going to do differently if someone takes this action versus if they don't take this action? So as long as you have, again, to Eric's point, kind of the mindset and the strategy of personalization, you can start to scale it pretty quickly. It can get overwhelming, and you need resources because you'll need to create different marketing materials in order to have that custom message to that individual based on who they are and what actions they've taken. You need the data centralization. You need the technology to have that automation and do it at scale. But in order to go at scale, again, the initial thought process really gets you over the hump of how do I personalize. Scaling it tends to be like for me, at least in the businesses I've worked with, tends to be a step and repeat. Let's just change how we're talking to them, maybe the type of touch point as well. But again, the mindset is the biggest thing, is the biggest challenge I've seen businesses face, of saying, let's understand the difference between segmentation and personalization. A lot of companies think that they're the same thing. So let's define how those two things are different, segmentation and personalization. Let's start some true personalized marketing campaigns. And then from there, I think it can become pretty efficient. That mindset is key though.
Yeah, well said. I don't think I had too much more. Just trying to separate the two. Personalization and scale, I think, are different things. They can be combined, but it's all within that data. And so often, if you find success in the KPIs or goals that you set out with whatever the personalization strategy is, try to do as much testing as possible and continue to create that feedback loop. And ultimately, within those successes, you'll find the recipe for scale.
Awesome, thank you. And just want to remind everyone, if you have questions as the conversation is going on, please drop them in the chat. We'll ask them at the end of the conversation. And then another question is, as you're scaling, how do you track the changes in customer needs? How do you adapt to those changes?
We're certainly dealt with probably the biggest change of our lifetimes this past year or so. Having a good, seems silly, but knowing your brand, knowing what you're good at, knowing your customers, your product really, really well will help you to adapt to those changes more efficiently. If you know your customers well, if you know again, your brand really well, when something happens either in the world that's out of your control or somewhat in your world related to your business, you can adapt more easily. The data it takes, depends on your business, but understanding your goals is the other big aspect, I would say. Knowing what you want to achieve, that gives you a sense of, at least what you want to reach, how many customers you want to have, your conversion rate, whatever your goal is for that quarter, for that year, or goals, I should say. You'll have multiple goals. Then if you reach or don't reach those goals, that will also often be an indication of what other data, what other metrics should I be looking at, what's maybe changing, how can I be more effective and efficient at reaching the goals that I have. So I'd say those two things are pretty important.
Yeah, I think one early lesson we had, it's all about, to Jenna's point, if you know your data, you understand your strategy, change is going to happen, but at least you can be prepared to know when it becomes an anomaly itself, or if it's truly something that you need to pivot. So I remember when, Google's Penguin change made a ridiculous amount of SERP improvements, and we saw ridiculous traffic decrease from a lot of our heavily organic customers. We had no idea why, and it probably took us a good 3 months to figure it out, which for many was a short period of time. But that ultimately changed the way we looked at our data and strategy. Say you can never be prepared for something like that. You can be prepared that it's going to happen, but you may not know the actual nuances of what it is. So adapting to change is really just trying to understand when it becomes something serious to maneuver, and having your data and your KPIs aligned hopefully will allow you to pivot and change as fast as you can to address it. But it's kind of a double-edged sword. You can't be too prepared, because then you just spend too much time worrying about what's gonna change. So
yeah. Jenna, this question is for you. You've mentioned meeting the customer where they are. How does one do that successfully?
I always, you take the typical customer journey, which it's changing and it's evolving certainly after this year, but you take the typical customer journey. You have awareness, interest, consideration, conversion, whatever it means to your business, and then kind of loyalty, retention. And so oftentimes I'll think about how would I talk face to face to someone differently if they were interacting with my business, if they've never heard of me, if they've heard of me but haven't bought into whatever I'm selling, the service, product, whatever it is, if they have bought or pretty close to buying, and then if they've bought on a repeated occasions. And so that helps us think about, that's kind of the first step for me in thinking about how I would personalize, is just starting there. Those are 4 different ways right off the bat that I talk to people differently, knowing their background and their interactions to date with my business. And then you can go further, right? People who have never heard of your business, how do they differ? Are they interested or uninterested? Are you solving for a need, or are you solving something that someone doesn't know that they need? Right? We're in an interesting world right now where practicality is really important. Even a year into this, practicality has never been as important as it has been in this past year for marketers, right? People weren't really at whim purchasing things or signing up for things because it was, what do I need right now, given that I'm typically, confined to my home with my family, alone, wherever it was. And so thinking about what someone needs, and again, how you would talk to them differently, but starting in kind of the basic 4 or 5 customer journey steps is often where I think that's the first step in personalization, or talking to folks differently and understanding what I need.
Thank you for that. And Eric, you've mentioned the process of marketing hasn't changed really. So what has changed?
Yeah, I mean, what I mean by that is there's still a lot of subjectivity in how decision making occurs. What has changed is the ability for data to inform those decisions. But clearly, we live in this very interesting world where everybody can be an expert. So what's good about it is that as data and our ability to make decisions becomes much more objective, the bridge between creative problem solving should be that much more fruitful and successful. So to echo some of Jenna's points there, which is a fantastic segue, is when you can combine the two together in understanding what is successful from a personalization strategy, and you combine creative and strategic problem solving with data, then ultimately we haven't been able to achieve access to data as quickly and cost effectively as we have previously. So I think we're at an age and a point in time with an unbelievable amount of opportunity in many ways to create a connection point with customers that we haven't before. But it takes a lot more work and thinking and strategy to know when something's working, how to pivot and change and optimize.
Yeah, if you look close enough, there's always opportunity, no matter what's blinding us. So I was going to ask this question later on, but this kind of leads to that. For both of you, what changes are you anticipating in the way you'll market after the economy starts opening up? Or what would you recommend for businesses to change?
I hope that our empathy continues. We've been talking about empathy for businesses for decades. And I think this was really the first year where we've maybe started to empathize with folks, as we've seen people with their kids, animals in the background, all this stuff we were put in our consumers' homes, and we were letting them into our own homes. And so we actually started to empathize a bit with customers, and I hope that continues, because that's the key, right? We always talk about empathy in marketing, but as businesses, we tend to sympathize, not empathize, and there's a big difference. And if we're able to really put ourselves in the shoes of our customers and have that kind of customer hat on when we're talking to them, I think it will allow us to be a lot more engaged and a lot more effective in what we do, how we talk to them, and how they talk back to us, and how they engage with us. That's my hope. I don't know if it will happen, but that's my hope of a big change that will continue.
Yeah, I'd say on the agency or the marketing business side, we as agency owners or marketers, again, in embracing this time to, especially being virtual, if you will, has challenged, but also given us an opportunity to look at how our workflow, our processes, and our team can potentially be happier or work in a way that allows them to be the best person that they can be. I don't think that's going to go back to what it was, but I think there's a hybrid there that nobody quite knows yet how that's going to land. So as things open up, Gianne, I think that's a good example of something we have to still figure out and be prepared for. For the direct businesses, if they haven't already figured out what the digital landscape or delivery or online means to their business, they better get going, and there's still time to figure that out. But it's an unbelievable, I think if they've been able to hold on to their business and see some success, for us helping bridge that conversation, figuring out again a balance for them as well as they open up. What is their new business going to look like? Because it's going to change again, right? It's not going to be as much volume. There's not going to be as much foot traffic, let's say, whatever the business is, I'm generalizing, but it's definitely going to be another big a movement into where that world's going to go. And that's going to continue to evolve. And we don't exactly know where that's going to be. So hopefully we can guide each other collectively. And I think to Jenna's point too, the empathy side of helping and supporting local businesses that may not have the budgets and the options and the opportunities is important for each of us, depending on where we live.
Yeah, that's perfect. And so let's take a step back. Let's talk about the 2021 landscape. What does it look like for digital marketing? Give us your expert opinion on that.
I think that it's going to be a bit dependent on how quickly we start to normalize things, and what is a little confusing for businesses is that different areas, within countries, states, et cetera, have different rules right now. So some consumers are kind of getting back to normal and some aren't. And so that's hard because we've trained ourselves to a degree in a different way of buying and connecting with businesses. And so some people are still in that world and some people aren't. So I think for 2021, it's adapting to both sides, to both, and there's more than one side, every angle of it. I think that it's, at this point, I saw a good quote from Google at the end of last year about a business, about thinking about consumers now every consumer knows how to buy groceries on their phone. That did not exist a year ago. And so design and user experience are going to become more and more important, I think, in 2021 for your website, for your email, everything that you do in social. What does that experience look like? Where are you taking people within that digital ecosystem? That user experience is going to become more and more important because more people than ever are on their phones and are comfortable on their phones and their digital devices. So from a marketing perspective, how do we think about all of those details that make up a user experience that oftentimes we kind of put on the side and said, okay, well, if someone needs this or wants this, they'll wait the 5 seconds for our website to load. Or they don't mind if they see a product that's not listed on the website in mobile, but they do on desktop. And people don't necessarily have that. I don't think people have that patience anymore because there's 10 other businesses that might do what you're doing. There's a lot of competition out there. And we've gotten so accustomed to doing things online, again, a year into this. So for 2021, I think, again, to wrap it back, like a big focus is going to be that user experience, user design. It seems, again, like an afterthought, but it's so important for businesses to think about what people are actually experiencing on their devices and how they experience it. Because people don't have a lot of patience, even when they are home. And so how do we make it as seamless as possible?
Yeah, I got a bunch of thoughts. I think just like tactically, I'm quite interested and see a lot of growth in account-based marketing and where ABM specifically for in digital for more of a longer sale and longer close cycle for businesses is really starting to grow. And so there's many technology options now, and there's agencies sort of popping up with this direct service. So I think ABM is a big one. Again, selfishly, the world of AI and automation continues to hit us everywhere we go. And you can spin up a website in 2 seconds with automation, and a whole bunch of really interesting technologies are coming out. So I think that's only going to continue. We have something like clients in 80 countries, and there is no real difference between customers that are in the digital marketing space. We all really do share the same tactics and goals and channels and strategies, but we're also trying to search for the one big thing that we haven't quite figured out, which is how to give ourselves more time. So I think that as more tactics and more budgets, and even some of the questions coming up with all these different ways we can spend our clients' dollars, it creates additional workflow issues, which I think will sort itself out, but it's still hard for us to let go of the processes and the ways we're used to doing our business. So I think that will evolve too. I think that I personally see a lot of consolidation. There's a lot of acquisitions in the digital marketing space to continue to try to consolidate offerings under more cost-effective solutions for us as SMB marketers and SMB agencies. In terms of just where the importance of marketing fits, I think is number one. So because of COVID, things sort of flipped where marketing and sales, were important, of course, but they weren't. It was like, how does marketing fit into all this? And now, with everything being completely digital, it's our business, our offering, our expertise is really the most important thing that any business should have a grasp on, should have a strategy towards. And I think what used to happen was you'd have maybe some old school marketers or boss or CMO or client that would rely on way too much lag data. And now that everything really should be and is instant, it just puts accountability into places that didn't exist, which is also very uncomfortable for some people too. But just a few things from my mind there, Gianne.
Yeah, thank you for that, Eric. So we have a question in the chat here from the audience, and they want to know, what are some initial recommendations you both have for a new business with online services when it comes to digital marketing? So what are your recommendations through social media, blog, email, newsletters, etc.? Tackling it all.
I mean, first and foremost, know your goal. Seems straightforward enough, but a lot of businesses will start on these channels and not know what they actually want to achieve. I know I mentioned it earlier. I promise I'm not just kind of preaching it. It really is, once you know your goal, it becomes a lot easier to use all of those channels. If you start an email, if you start social media and don't know what you actually want to accomplish from it, it's hard to know if you've succeeded or not, right? And especially when we use vague goals too, like I want to generate awareness. What does that mean? So we want to be really specific in I want to engage my customers. What does that mean? So we really want to be more detailed in how we think about what we want to accomplish, and that should help steer your channels and what you use. So, start with your goals, think about then your audience, who your audience is, how would you talk to them differently? How would you talk to them differently based on how they interact with you? And then, understanding the best practices of each channel, customer's intent, going back to what I mentioned earlier, right? My intent in email is a lot different than my intent in Instagram. So the disruption from a business is a lot different. I am disrupting, right? Unless you're Oprah or Nike, you are disrupting someone's experience when they go onto Instagram. Versus email, it might be annoying, right? We might all be annoyed by our email every day when we log in, but it's less of a disruption because we know what to expect. So thinking about the social best practices, how people use them, and then come up with a plan. But the plan is easy to a degree once you have that goal and understand your audience and keeping in mind the best practices. So again, certainly easier said than done, but that's always my first recommendation is know your goals. Think about who your audience is. And when you think about who your audience is, think about who they are, not just as it relates to your business, but again, what else is going on to help us empathize with them? What else are they thinking about? Who else are you competing with? And you may not have a direct competitor per se in your space, but you're competing with hundreds, thousands of other businesses for every customer's time, eyeballs, right? We're in a very cluttered world. So you're still competing to a degree, knowing your value what is the value you're giving your customers day in and day out, and with every message that you send to them, understanding what's the benefit to them is really important. Asking yourself that and saying, if I start an Instagram account, what value am I giving my followers? Why would anyone want to follow me? Asking those questions can help steer your content in the right direction and how you'll use those channels.
Yeah, I'll go in a different direction and say it's all about the foundation and the little but very important things of tracking and making sure that you can compare apples to apples. So there's a random analogy of, like, if you're going to open a restaurant and you start marketing, but before you do, maybe open the door to see if anybody outside is hungry. We as marketers forget to do the same or employ the same sort of tactics with clients that we're starting out with. So maybe they already have organic traffic that they're not tracking. Maybe there's people that are interested in their product. Maybe they're buying, but they're not converting enough because of the process itself. So before you start adding on net new, tactics or spend, fix that leaky bucket and convert and get those metrics to the point where maybe you have a whole bunch of opportunity that you just need to figure out first. So I'd always say, that there's a combination there of finding a sweet spot between the paid and the organic side. But start with that heavy intent, understand your tracking, know how to report properly, make sure everything is working and aligning. And then from there, you can, add on more additional tactics down or up the funnel, depending on where you're at, that can, create really a great strategy.
Thank you. And Eric, I believe this question is for you from the chat. Can you talk more about ABM and how a small digital agency can use this to help their clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a longer conversation, and just you can do some research in terms of what ABM is and how it works. But ultimately, it's a service. Depending, again, if you have more of a consumer-led type of specialty within the agency, and to the question, if you want to get into more on the B2B side, then ABM can allow you to really be that marketing/sales process beside a potential customer. So it creates hyper personalization, solid strategies. I won't get into tactics, but there's a real big hole between how a company employs marketing, and also it's the closeness and proximity to their sales process. And that's always been something that's highly disjointed, but it's even worse now because of the complexity of digital marketing and how all those things can impact lead and CRM, and so all those things. So on top of that, it's also within the capturing and the translation of the data. So if you're doing lead magnets and doing great campaigns and got a website and all the you're reviewing all the data and all the information, you're triggering leads that going into our CRM, you're assuming that everything is going or following a process within the organization. But the success of what you're doing, those leads that go into the business, is ultimately tied to what the business does with that and what the salespeople do, and are they tracking the success and closing, and that whole closed loop back to what the digital marketing or marketing is doing. So ABM really ties those things much closer together. It's a really interesting offer to be able to add into an agency's portfolio.
Thank you. And Eric, I have another question for you. Some of our questions have been geared more towards smaller kind of local businesses, but you're based in Canada. So for those marketing globally, how does one do that successfully? Are there any differences in digital marketing when it comes to marketing in Canada versus the US? Does it depend on the kind of company? Like maybe you can approach American consumers differently than you can Canadian consumers?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some tactical nuances. I think when we chatted about this question, the one that easily comes up is email. So Jenna brought this up too early on. Email for us Canadians as a marketing tool is non-existent. It's just not something you can do. Heavy restrictions, very large fines. And it's, it's been that way for quite a while now. So, mixed with, even our business has a large focus on US and global footprint, email is something that we employ absolutely. So that's one example, but we can't do it in our backyard. But no, I would say for the most part, the tactics, the channels, the strategies themselves aren't that different. it's not as easy to say it's a country thing. It really is highly regional and highly focused. So again, depending on the product, location, etc., we would have traditionally marketed something in the fitness space very differently in Ontario, part of Canada, than we would out west. So back to that personalization, it's, really do need to know the community you're in, again, to pay so many variables on product versus service and a bunch of different things. But it's back to, as long as you know the community, you know who you're selling to, you know what your strategies, your goals, and your outcomes are, it's a constant learning exercise to figure out what's going to work. So no real easy answer for that one, I'm afraid, Gianne.
Thank you for that. And this is an interesting question from Michelle. She had a call earlier today with a gaming expert. I feel like Vanna White. And they touched on Twitch and Discord and how these channels should be used by startups today. So any recommendations on how to do digital marketing via Twitch and Discord?
Well, Twitch is pretty specific. I don't know if Eric, you've done much on Twitch, but Twitch is a pretty niche audience. So I'd again go back to your goals and your audience, and think about if your audience is on Twitch. Same with Discord, right? That's a little bit smaller, I would say. I don't know, I have the numbers offhand, but I don't know that they're a need to have. Certainly, I'm going back to your question just to get a little bit of context here. If you have a gaming app, yes, that makes sense to be on there. There are branded channels participating in conversations, partnerships. There's a whole slew of different ways to get involved in those channels. Again, not to sound too preachy, but think about what you want to accomplish first and foremost. Is it downloads? Do you have anyone using your app today? What does it include? Think about the people who are on there. I'd get familiar with the platforms themselves, take a look around, create a user profile, start to look at what other types of content people create on there and see if there are any similarities, look for some partnerships that might work well. I'd say that's a good starting point overall if you're in the gaming space.
Yeah, if there's one overused term that I do not enjoy hearing, it's all about gamification, because I think it I won't go there. But let's say from a client perspective, and I don't know, Michelle, if you said you're talking with a gaming expert, but if it's a client, generally they often hear things, and the next big thing maybe they should try, and why aren't we on this app or this media, whatever. That's always going to happen, and usually it's just because they heard it on the TV or the news, or their friend told them or something like that. So it's good to be prepared, but I think to Jenna's point, it's only when you have everything else tidied up and you have the strategy locked in, and which channels are converting. I would always say, absolutely, let's try whatever you want. What is the expected acquisition cost? What is the outcome? Put together a strategy with real numbers and show what the return is probably going to be, and let that make the decision. But there are many ways you can, instead of going direct to the platform, you could, pick one of the influencers and do something more specifically in an audience that's directly tied to what the app is supposed to do. Again, it's hard to really answer what the strategy could be, but I think I would agree with Jenna. It's often, there's probably a lot of other more concrete ways to get them started that are going to be less expensive and probably give more of a rate of return than something that is generally more awareness driven, which is really just hard to measure.
Another quick question from Michelle is, for a startup, is a marketing person a first hire or outsourced to a marketing agency? Michelle, as a self-funded business owner, I would say whatever's cheaper, but would love to know what Jenna and Eric think.
Yeah, I mean, John, you make a great point, right? I think, it tends to be whatever's more efficient for business. There are pros and cons to both approaches. Agencies, coming from the agency world, some businesses just have it in their heads that they hate agencies. So don't go that route. If you tend to have that mentality, they'll never understand my business, they're not part of us, etc. You know, there are a lot of pros. The overhead isn't there, but they're not in your business every day. There are a number of wonderful agency folks who get to know your business quickly and can do amazing work. You have to find the right fit, and sometimes that takes time, so it's a con, but there are really smart, really passionate folks at the agency level that can help. So it depends. It's not a great answer. For a marketing person, I would say the one caveat with hiring someone internally, there's a lot of pros. You have them on board, you can get them kind of quickly up to speed. Their only focus is you. But if you don't know your goals, if you haven't kind of recognized the importance of marketing and kind of just want to do some trial pieces with it, sometimes it's nice to hire an agency, see what works, what doesn't, and say, okay, now we need a leader who can kind of manage this on their own. I know I work with a lot of businesses to do that, to say like, hey, work with me if you don't know what you want, and we'll try and figure out what you need for your organization, because it's a lot less of a cost for them. They're not tied to me, I'm not tied to them. And so there's a lot of agencies out there that can do that sort of work and help you prep for an internal hire over time. So again, there's probably a lot more pros when you're just starting out from an agency perspective. Just make sure to have the mentality they care about your business, assuming that you find the right person or right group of people, and be as transparent as possible with them. Having been client side as well, like things move so fast when you're on that other side, when you are the business. There's a lot of discourse that happens internally at businesses. So being transparent with your agency, letting them know where things stand, why things might get caught up and stopped and paused, etc., really helps create a really good working relationship, which will give you hopefully some better marketing and better effects from that relationship.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, speaking from experience in firing my own agency with another company that I was involved in, took me some time to realize that what our agency was really good at and what we were really bad at, or where we couldn't succeed. But you know, in the startup, if I would say, I'll look at it a different way, is that you got to look at the dynamics of the startup and who's involved. Is it, you know, if there aren't marketers and you haven't worked with an agency before, there's definitely a steep learning curve in terms of managing expectations and cost. You're always, you know, one of many clients that they will serve. That's okay. But you can't hope to hire an agency and they're going to solve all your problems, especially with a startup. So I would lean more towards, you know, looking at small agencies or freelancers to ebb and flow with what you need when you need it, but do so in a way that you can include them within the business and the startup so they understand the culture, the problem, and hopefully be a part of the strategy to solve it. That's always going to make marketing more sticky, because, you know, you're going to try a million different things and a million different tactics, and every business and startup is going to be different. And so don't get locked into a long-term contract or relationship with an agency until you're really ready to commit. It's a good year. It should be a year based on strategy and execution and ups and downs and testing, et cetera. It's a lot of money and it's a lot of commitment on both sides. But to have someone come in, no matter who they are, expect to know the entire strategy, the entire business, the direction of the market, is going to take some time. So just whatever you do, be cognizant that you need to give as much as hopefully they will get. Gianne is on.
I was muted, 2020 mistake, sorry. But thank you for sharing that timeline. I know that I always want like immediate results. So it's good to know you got to give it a solid year. And to wrap up, if both of you can share, is there a certain marketing certification that you'd recommend? You know, that if this candidate had that certification, you would be like, okay, they went through that program, they know their stuff. As well as what inspires you for content marketing?
Yes, in regards to certification, you know, I work with a company that does certification, so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. So certainly, you know, certifications can help. It really comes down to the person. I see all different folks in my classes, and I encourage folks to have some sort of a real world, example portfolio. So certifications are, I'd say, look for that in your certification. Our class focuses on that. You do a real project, you create a digital marketing campaign. With that said, people can be great marketers who just listen to other marketers and take a course and kind of take it all in. There's so many different types of learners out there. For me, though, I do try and look for people who have some sort of hands-on experience, and some certifications come with that. But there isn't one gold standard, because even sometimes with certifications with projects, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily good at marketing. Probably the biggest lesson in that I ever had when I worked for Digitas my first day, my SVP at the time said, "Oh, Jenna, welcome, day one. Hey, this is Mark." And I said, "Oh, hey, Mark, what did you do prior to Digitas?" And he said, "I was a weatherman." Oh, okay. Cool. How does that relate? And he's amazing, and he was great. And so certifications are great, but really you have to have just like the tenacity for marketing, and interest in marketing, and the ability to work hard and be creative and think about data as well. So I know that was a long answer, but at the end of the day, if you're looking at certifications, look for ones with some hands-on experience if you can, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee success either. And then in regards to, what great content marketing looks like, or where do I look to for great content marketing? I'm a big fan in general of the Content Marketing Institute. I think they showcase a lot of great content across the globe that can be really inspiring. And then I just look for trends on kind of a daily, weekly basis on what's going on, what people are talking about on all different platforms, and keep a pulse on it that way. I have a number of lists of kind of marketing industry folks on Twitter that yes, I still use Twitter, to go to and see what they're talking about, to see some nice content as well.
Yeah, I think in terms of certifications, it probably depends on the size of the business and where they're at in terms of hiring. So, if it's a startup, they're going to want cost-effective, hardworking, awesome humans to come in and really help with scale. There'll probably be a lot less scrutiny. Many times they're hiring quickly, and you got to prove yourself. I think in many cases, certifications are highly warranted, but in many times they're also table stakes, things that show you're constantly learning and going and working hard towards bettering yourself and your career. So always good to have. In a larger, firm or agency, et cetera, where maybe you're going through more of the HR process before you meet your potential boss, certifications might help out, speak more clearly to work ethic or internships or things that you've done that can show you're different from other candidates. So again, I think it's a little bit different depending on who it is and where you're going. We have had and always will have a very strong internship program, both paid and unpaid, working with different schools and partners across each of our offices. That allows us to understand what is being taught and learned within the schools, what certifications and trends are happening, and hopefully, in which for us many times, I forget on what percentage, but we would almost always bring them in as into a career within our business itself. So it's a combination of working hard, showing that you care, showing up, talking to people, being communicative. That personalization goes a long way outside of the day-to-day tactics that, of course, we should all should know. So definitely one piece of the pie for sure.
Thank you. Well, thank you both so much for just sharing your expertise and answering all of the questions. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, and we are 4 minutes over. But before I hand it over to Shaheen, if you can both just let us know, if there's someone who wants to follow up with you, from the audience, what's the best way for them to do that? Where can they find you?
I'll share my LinkedIn or my website. I can share both contact info. Feel free to reach out. I just want to cringe a little bit less on the internet, so any help I can provide anyone, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Jenna.
Yeah.
Yep, same here. I'll throw my LinkedIn profile on there, but I'm fairly active, so it's always the best way to reach out.
Awesome. Shaheen, back to you.
Hey, so it was really cool to hear from both Eric and Jenna, who I've learned some of these things from in the past as well. It's cool to kind of reiterate on those and kind of that jog down memory lane. So thank you, Gianne, for moderating this. I want to thank you all for volunteering your time and hopping on here with us. I also want to be sure to give a special shout out to the Canadian Consulate General of Boston for helping us bring this content to the community that we can clearly see they crave and need to continue learning. So we'll hope to build up on this as the year goes. And if you want to get recaps of these, we'll be including those into our newsletters the next day. So be on the lookout for those. And our day is just starting. What I just dropped into the chat here is a link back to the virtual landing page. So if you want to join the next session, which is on your marketing tech stacks and how now at this point, we want to know from the digital customer journey and mapping tools to voice, technology is really helping us achieve all these things. So learn from them how they're going about it. And that will start in roughly 9 minutes. So good to see you all here for now. I hope to see some of you in the next session. And if you're trying to reach out to us, all of our contacts are in the chat. And it's been good to see you. So be good. See you later.